Today we're jumping into one of the most, profound and honestly counterintuitive ideas in the whole mystical tradition. It's this concept that holiness doesn't just show up out of nowhere. No, it has to be drawn down. It has to be invited, pulled into the darkest of places. And it all starts with a single righteous scout. This idea, it completely flips our usual understanding of divine intervention on its head. So let's dive in and see how. I want you to really picture this. A 4K cinematic scene. You see Joseph all alone, this luminous figure against the huge, dark, imposing landscape of Egypt. He's not just some slave being sold off, right? He's a point of light, literally descending into the abyss. And behind him, trailing him. It's not something you can see with your physical eyes, but you can feel it. There's this veiled, radiant aura, a hidden holiness. That is the Shekhinah, the divine presence itself, being pulled almost magnetically right into the heart of exile. The Zohar is crystal clear on this. This was no accident. The divine presence doesn't lead the way. It follows the righteous.
Exactly. And that right there is the million-dollar question for today's deep dive. Why that strange, specific order? I mean, why couldn't the whole family, Jacob and all 12 sons, just go down together with God's presence clearing the path ahead? Why on earth would you send one beloved son all by himself into what was considered the most spiritually impure place on the planet? Well, the answer? It reveals something absolutely stunning, a piece of precise cosmic engineering.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to take a journey through the 4 traditional levels of understanding. You might know it as Pardes. We'll kick things off with the literal story. Then we'll uncover the hidden patterns. After that, we'll explore the core principles, and finally, we'll get to the good stuff, the deep, cosmic secret of how this whole thing actually works.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Level 1, the Peshat. This is the simple, literal story. It's the one we all know, but it's absolutely crucial because it's the foundation for everything else we're going to build on today.
Right, so on the surface, the story's pretty straightforward. You've got Joseph, the dreamer. He's betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery. He goes through the whole ordeal in Potiphar's house, resists temptation like a champ, and still gets thrown in prison. But then, through this incredible divine gift of interpreting dreams, he skyrockets from the pit to basically becoming the CEO of the world's greatest empire. And it's his foresight that gets Egypt ready for this massive famine, which is what forces his family to come looking for help. And that sets the stage for the whole reunion and their eventual move to Egypt.
Okay, now let's peel that first layer back. We're moving on to Remez, the hidden pattern, because underneath this epic dramatic story, the mystics point out there's a very specific sequence happening, a kind of spiritual protocol that is absolutely crucial to understand. These events, they're not random at all. They follow a very specific causal order.
And you know what? This sequence, this protocol, it's completely the opposite of what you'd expect. First, you have just one righteous person, Joseph. Then, after him, the divine presence is literally pulled down, and only once that space has been made holy by their combined presence, then the tribes, the whole structure of the future nation, can enter. And last, dead last, the patriarch Jacob, the root of the whole family, arrives, but he arrives into a space that's been perfectly prepared for him. This isn't just a story, folks, it's a protocol.
And get this entire protocol is actually encoded in numbers. The number 1, that's Joseph, the single point of light, the one leading the charge. 2, that represents the fundamental bond he creates with the Shekhinah, establishing that first crucial foothold of holiness. Then you have 12 for the 12 tribes, which is the complete spiritual architecture of Israel, this holy structure. And finally, 70 souls in total make the journey. This number signifies the completion of Jacob's family, and on a much bigger, cosmic level, it's a kind of rectified mirror to the 70 nations of the world. Each number isn't just a count, it's a blueprint for a layer of reality.
Okay, so we've got the what and the how, but that brings us to our next level, the drash, the deeper principle. And here we have to ask the big question, why? Why the super elaborate multi-stage process? The principle at play here is all about transforming a hostile environment, but not by attacking it from the outside. No, it's about making it holy from the inside out.
And here's the crucial point. From a Kabbalistic viewpoint, exile is never just a punishment. It's not that simple. Egypt is famously called the iron furnace, the Kur HaBarzel. And a furnace isn't for punishing, it's for refining. It's a crucible, designed for a very specific job, to find, to gather, and to purify the scattered sparks of holiness, what we call the Nitzasot Kedoshim, that fell into the realm of impurity way back during the primordial shattering of the vessels. So you see, the Israelites couldn't just go around Egypt, they had to go into it to get back what was lost there.
And there are a couple of brilliant ways to understand this principle. Let's start with a video game analogy. Think about it. You'd never send your whole team into a dark, dangerous, unexplored level all at once, would you? Of course not. You send in a scout first. That scout's job is to activate a beacon or create a safe zone, a protective aura, and only then can the rest of your team spawn in safely. Now, for the more technical minds out there, think of it like cosmic engineering. You're not just going to migrate a massive critical system onto a new, totally unsecured network. No way! First, you deploy a single, highly authenticated primary node. That node's job is to establish a secure connection, bypass all the local firewalls, and initiate a stable, secure environment. And only then does the full data migration begin. Joseph. Joseph is that primary node.
All right, it's time. Let's go to the deepest level, the sod, the secret itself. And using that cosmic engineering analogy as our guide, we can finally unpack the actual spiritual physics of how this whole process works. This is where it gets really good.
Okay, first things first. We have to be crystal clear on what the Shekhinah is. It's not an angel, it's not some separate being. The Shekhinah is the divine presence. But more specifically, it's the aspect of the divine that can actually dwell inside creation, within our world of time and space. It's often described as the presence that camps with Israel in exile. But here's the catch. It can only enter and live in a space that has been properly prepared for it. It cannot just interface directly with impurity.
Okay, so let's really flesh out this tech analogy. Joseph the righteous, the tzaddik, he's our primary node. His spiritual purity, his very soul, carries the core source code of holiness. Now Egypt, that's the hostile network. It's protected by a massive firewall of spiritual impurity, what Kabbala calls the klippah, the husks or shells. But Joseph's righteousness, especially his legendary ability to withstand temptation and guard the covenant, it acts like an unhackable, perfectly encrypted authentication key. It lets him bypass that firewall completely. And once he's inside, he starts to initialize the full system environment. And that environment is the Shekhinah. It's that simple. Wherever the authenticated node is deployed, the full system presence can initialize and run. And now, we can take this whole process and map it onto its true native framework, the Sephirot. For anyone new to this, the Sephirot are the 10 divine emanations, the attributes through which the infinite creator interacts with our universe. So what we've been talking about, it isn't just an analogy anymore. This is the actual system.
So let's break it down. Joseph is identified with the Sephirah of Yesod, which literally means foundation. Yesod is the divine channel, the attribute responsible for funneling all that spiritual energy from the higher worlds down into our physical world. It's the ultimate connector, and there's a reason he's called Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph the Righteous. It's because his defining quality was purity, what the Zohar calls Nether Brit, guarding the covenant. This incredible supreme purity is what makes him the perfect, uncorrupted conduit. He is the living embodiment of Yesod. He's the pipeline that holiness flows through.
And the Shekhinah? Well, that corresponds to the final Sephirah, Malkut, which means kingdom. Malkut is the great receptor. Think of it like the moon. It doesn't have any light of its own, but it perfectly reflects the light of the sun. Malkut is the divine presence as it actually shows up in our world. But it receives all of its spiritual life force from the other Sephirots above it. And its main connection point, its primary interface is, you guessed it, Yesod. So it's a law of spiritual physics. Where Yesod goes, Malkut is naturally drawn to connect and to follow. That is the precise technical mechanism behind what the Zohar tells us the Shekhinah only follows after the righteous.
And that just completes the entire blueprint. So where do Jacob and the tribes fit in? They embody the Sephirah of Tiferet, which means beauty or harmony. Tiferet is the central trunk of the entire Sephirotic tree. It stands for the complete, balanced, harmonized structure of the whole divine system. Jacob, who is Israel, and his 12 sons, they are this complete, holy structure. But you can't just transplant the whole tree trunk into barren, hostile soil. It won't work. First, that foundational connection has to be established, the pipeline of Yesod connecting to the receptive vessel of Malchut. Only when that sacred space has been initialized and sanctified can the full, balanced structure of Tiferet come down safely.
And you can see it visualized here perfectly. You start with this small, super concentrated initial investment, Yesod, which is Joseph. That in turn allows for the next crucial piece, Malchut, the Shekhinah, creating a stable connection. Together, those two prepare the ground, which then makes it possible for the huge, complete structure of Jacob and Israel, Tiferet, to enter.
And not just to survive, but to actually thrive in the most unlikely place you could imagine, Egypt. So that brings our whole deep dive to its ultimate point. We've looked at the mechanics, we've seen the system, we have the blueprint. But what was the grand purpose of it all? I mean, why go through all this trouble in the first place?
Well, the purpose was a progressive revelation of holiness, right in the heart of the unholy. You can almost see it as a shift in colors. Joseph's descent, that's like a seed of white and gold light. It's pure, it's concentrated potential, but it's hidden. Then, when the Shekhinah follows, that light becomes active. Now it's a blue and silver light, this cool, reflected divine presence that starts to push back the darkness. And finally, when the tribes get there and they multiply and they build a life, that holiness just bursts forth. It turns green, the color of life, of flourishing. It's revealed, manifest holiness, growing right there in the physical soil of Egypt.
And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. The descent into Egypt was not some passive tragedy that they just had to endure. It was an active, strategic mission. The goal wasn't merely to survive exile. It was to go right into its core, reclaim the divine energy that was trapped there, and completely transform the place from the inside out. Joseph wasn't a victim here. He was the vanguard of a massive, cosmic reclamation project.
You know, this ancient principle has a really personal and powerful application for all of us today. I mean, if one righteous person, through their own purity and their actions, can prepare the ground in a place like ancient Egypt for the divine presence to enter, well, it kind of forces us to ask ourselves, doesn't it? What ground are we preparing in our own lives, in our homes, at our jobs, in our communities, even just in our own minds? What space are we making holy so that holiness has a place to follow?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Paradise. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.